In this movie, Sly will rescue people from a flooded tunnel. It all started with the transportation of toxic waste.
Flu, no fuss, no muss.
Now what are you worrying for?
I'm not.
It is very difficult not to attract attention when trucks with barely covered bodies and yellow barrels are driving around the neighborhood and through a multi-million-dollar city from morning to evening. At the time of loading, workers put pallets on the edge and it is unclear what this operator is counting on. The place is already occupied, and his colleague will not be able to shift such a weight alone. Well, at least the transported waste was packed in barrels. Everything else generally lies in the open air in the form of colorful, cheerful piles. Unfortunately, inhaling it every day and ruining the lungs will not be so fun. By pure chance, people with different destinies ended up in an underground tunnel. One of them is the unsuccessful writer Madeline. When she sings at the top of her voice, the window next to her is open, but if you look from inside the car, everything is exactly the opposite. At this time, the owner of the jewelry store goes outside. The sign here managed to be issued with an error, namely the letter I was written in the wrong place. In general, he was very unlucky and 3 punks robbed him, after which the chase begins. At some point, the thieves crash into the fence without hitting anyone, but in the next frame, a strange hard worker with suicidal tendencies jumps on the windshield. Even at the entrance, cars drive very slowly and the characters try to punish time, but as soon as the robbers are in the frame, nothing prevents them from picking up speed and crashing into other cars. It is not entirely clear why in a narrow long tunnel to push the gas to the floor to constantly go overtaking. The passenger car will still not be able to pass the stream and be outside much earlier. The operators were not lazy and filmed the ride from different points. The speedometer even gets into the frame. The scale shows kilometers per hour and this is a very big mistake. The fact is that the film is set in the USA, and here, as you know, it is customary to measure the distance in miles. This error occurred because most of the film was shot in Italy, where the dashboards are manufactured to European specifications.
Oh, we got a live one here. Get a breaker, we got a smoker, we got a smoker!
The surveillance center and the security guard in the tunnel quickly spotted the right sedan, but their attention was completely not attracted by 3 trucks full of yellow barrels. According to the rules, dangerous chemicals cannot be transported through tunnels, but this is elementary contrary to common sense. So the convoy should slow down at the entrance and the disaster would not have happened. In this scene, the eyes are cut by the wheel of a yellow taxi. It just burst out of the blue and that's it, under the pressure of an uncomplicated scenario. Usually, the remains of something are called waste, from which there is no more sense. The adjective toxic does not change the essence. Whatever is in the yellow barrels, it will not explode like a huge charge of TNT. It would seem that a strong blow led to the detonation, but in fact it was all the fault of a good cable on the asphalt and other utilities like pyropatrons. The explosion caused a powerful fire wave. Please note that now it is only moving towards the viewer, but for some reason the cars have already turned into useless cans, and the walls of the tunnel on both sides have fallen heavily. Drivers and passengers are also not visible here. It's as if a nuclear war has already taken place here between the frames, as if in the second Terminator. At the entrance to the tunnel, the same story. Cars in motion abruptly become unattended. Please note that the vehicles are located one after the other, and then abruptly in a chaotic manner. This car in general managed to turn over on its side. The main character named Keith Latora turned out to be nearby and saves a burning man. It is obvious that he is wearing too many clothes, and his hair and face are shiny from a copious layer of refractory gel.
What's happened?
I don't know. You're alive. You're alive.
Amazing. The blast wave with the fire was so powerful that it knocked out the steel doors and fried the building on the other side. She easily turns the bus over, but is not able to break through the windows in the cars of key characters. In fact, such pressure would have seeped through radiator grills and other gaps, turning people alive into a barbecue. And do not forget about the blackguard. He flew out of his booth altogether, but somehow miraculously managed to survive and feels 100%. Interestingly, at the time of the crash, there was a 4-door car next to Madeline, but now it has been replaced by a completely different car.
Whatever's burning in there is toxic as crap. They got samples.
After this phrase, everyone forgets that it was toxic waste that exploded. The survivors breathe calmly and move around in a confined space. Considering the scale of the explosion, they should not show the initial signs of poisoning. For example, tear eyes. No, a much sadder fate awaits them. The skin should begin to blister, smoothly turning into a mess, and perhaps by the end of the film, Sly would have had to not save, but fend off the attacks of the ghouls who survived from the mine.
You're our help.
No, just me.
There shouldn't be a bus with prisoners here. He belongs to the correctional institutions of New York, and the tunnel leads to New Jersey. There is no reason why convicted teenagers should be taken to another state. Since there is an acute shortage of opponents in the film, the main antagonist can safely be called a power cable. It sparks like crazy, although in real life there will be no such effect. The circuit is simply not closed, even though it is broken. Then the villain suddenly begins to sway from side to side like a snake and eventually lengthens by itself. Experienced Madeline was able to tame the python of the stone jungle with the help of shoes. Given the diameter of the cable, the voltage there is several kilovolts. The rubber sole, although it seems sound, is several millimeters thick. At this voltage, the girl should receive a strong electric shock. The survivors are being watched from the control center. Depending on the point of view, the cracks on the camera vary greatly.
Here's the North Tube, South Tube. River, the riverbed.
Ha, this huge prehistoric model was brought here just to show the obvious? Thanks, now I've made sure that here is a river, and here is a tunnel. There is little oxygen inside the tunnel and time is limited. Rescuers will not have time to remove the rubble. The problem, to put it mildly, was invented, because only the initial arch collapsed at the entrance. Heavy machinery will remove it in no time. In general, Latora, as a former lifeguard, says that you can get to the survivors through the ventilation shaft. Rescuers and the administration together give the go-ahead for this adventure. They don't care if it's a one-way trip and the hero can't help in any way. In fact, it will only increase the number of potential victims. With the help of a computer, the boss turns off the fans for a while. The program performs important functions, but the password is not replaced with asterisks, as it usually happens. Visualization shows that everything has stopped, but then it's just a stupid animation. In fact, the fan has to be slowed down manually. Next, Sly makes his way through a few more and dials were installed here specially for him so that the hero knows how much time is left. Now, in order to get out, you actually need to climb up to the ceiling. I don't understand how the rescuer manages to stick one hand out and successfully pull himself up.
I'm gonna go in and see if they add up to a way out.
Roy sells bicycles, surfboards, shoes and other sports equipment, but his car just happened to have a climbing kit. Soon it is flooded with debris, for which the editors want to tear off their hands. The character just disappears and it looks extremely ridiculous. The already shitty situation is aggravated by water. It should flow faster and in larger volumes, but this does not happen. The river seems to pity the characters and gives additional timing. Do I have a question? Why is everything here quickly flooded knee-deep? Very close there is an open hatch, which should accommodate a large amount of water. Unfortunately, its existence is very bad news, because water will fill the space through which fresh air is blown. This will lead to the death of all survivors within 20 minutes. This is taking into account fire, smoke and constant flashes from nothing. Also, you will not see oil and gasoline stains on the water from flooded cars.
They're trying to plug that leak. I have to use an explosive.
I had to climb onto the beam, from her to the ceiling at hand, although in fact this is not so, and Sylvester Stallone somehow did not look like himself. By the way, the water flows too clean. It itself should be tinged and dirty from a lot of dirt and sand. A few minutes later, the film crew inflates a large mattress and overturns the car on the guard. The resulting depression should instantly fill with water, but this does not happen. What happened almost strained the rest of the cardboard dummies and they did not consider it necessary to come to the rescue for 5 minutes. Fortunately, there were a lot of boards and bars of different configurations in the pickup truck. They did not burn down from the most powerful wall of flames. When shooting in the water, the actors wore wetsuits. This woman preferred bright pink.
Sandhogs worked 36-hour shifts building this thing. Rooms there, they had chapels. It was all sealed off in the renovation of '72.
In the layout, the room is on top, but the characters discover it by swimming underwater. As a result, they make their way to the stairs, and most of the survivors come to the surface through the parking lot. The Hudson River has a depth of 10 meters and this is without taking into account the soil. What is shown on the screen does not correspond to the height at all, and if people outside the frame climbed higher, there would be a lot of obstacles on their way, because the passage was walled up 30 years ago. I wonder why the prisoners didn't take off their robes. They will be sent back to prison, and so it would be possible to escape.
We gotta go back to where we started.
No.
Anything I can do, you can do.
The plan is very simple. You need to make another explosion and the characters will wash up like in the toilet, only the opposite. It's a pity that this contradicts the laws of physics. The pressure in the tunnel is relieved thanks to the ventilation shafts, and the water will simply rush inside as before. Well, otherwise, the characters will get numerous fractures, they will not have enough air and because of the pressure drop, the vessels will burst. It's foggy outside and at the same time the sky is clear. It is noteworthy that the swimmers were immediately rescued, but the boss and the dark-skinned lady are right there. After all, they were in the parking lot and thought that there were no more survivors.